are welcome to share your story and inspire others. I am Fiona Brennan, your host. I'm a personal success coach, founder of Inspire Action Success, and here in conjunction with Global M.A.P.S events, I share with you beautiful stories from heart-centered entrepreneurs around the globe. This show is for entertainment purpose only, and the views of our guests are not necessarily the views of Inspire Action Success or M.A.P.S Global events. Enjoy. Hey everybody, how are you? Fiona here, back again for Share Your Story to Inspire Others, and today I am joined by the wonderful Johann Callaghan. Johann, I'm delighted to have you here.
I'm delighted to be here, Fiona. Never mind you, I'm just so excited. I love the work that you're doing, Fiona.
Thank you, Johann. And listen, it's an honor actually to have you here because you are such a brilliant person in so many ways. You are, I suppose, at the core, a sleep expert. That is your passion, but there's so many other things that you do that help other people, and we're going to learn all about that as we chat throughout this next 35 minutes.
Yeah, great.
So brilliant. So because it's all about sharing your story to help others, let's just go straight into it and tell me, I suppose, how it all began, or take me back to a point in time to where you started.
Right, okay. So I come from a family of 6 siblings. I'm the eldest. We grew up in a 3-bedroom house in Coolock. I guess it was a bit chaotic. It was I remember my whole young life, it was very, very chaotic, and kids everywhere. My father drank an awful lot as well, so we had those problems that go along with that as well. Money problems, we were so poor, all of this, you know. I used to remember all the neighbors being able to go to Spain, and God, the best that we got for our summer holiday was a day ticket on the bus or the rail, you know, and we'd go off for the day. That was the highlight of our day trips, or getting away anywhere, you know. But my mom did her best, bless her, you know, but she was so distracted, she had so much going on. And I remember it got to a point where I felt I didn't like my mother at one point. In fact, I hated my mother, and I never really understood why. I used to feel very not heard by her, very she didn't understand me. And I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel loved at all. And really, my mom was doing her very best. Like, there was 6 of us, I'm the eldest. There was a lot of like, there was maybe 1 or 2 years in between most of us, you know, so you can imagine my mom had her hands full. And then with my father, like, you know, and then financial problems. My mom did a bit of hairdressing at the time as well, and I always remember she used to go around the neighbours houses just to try and get a few bob, and it'd be £5, 5 Irish pounds, and God, when she got that, it was great. We knew we'd have our dinner the next day or whatever, this type of thing. That's how we lived, you know. And so that's how life was. And my nanny, my mother's mother, used to come and stay with us quite a lot as well, and she was developing dementia as well. So again, my mom was contending with that as well, and it ended up my nanny came and lived with us permanently then. So I was going through this feeling of not being loved, all this kind of thing. So I decided, not realizing it, and this is what we all do as human beings, I decided, you know what, I don't need my mom and I don't need my dad. Because it was easier to decide that rather than trying to battle for their love and attention. It was just easier to say, you know what, I don't need them. Now, I was very independent from a very, very...
What age were you roughly, Joanne, when you kind of made that sort of decision?
I was about 13 or 14, around that age. Yeah, just hitting the teenager years, you know. It's very emotional time as well for teenagers, and all the puberty and the hormonal changes and shifts and everything else that goes along with that. So I think it was probably heightened in and around that time, you know, that emotional kind of sense, because, you know, when you look at a teenagers, that the brain isn't quite developed, you know, where our brains aren't developed till we're nearly 25 or something like that, you know. So I couldn't understand emotionally what was going on. So I decided that, and I remember when I was, a lot of things happened in between, but I remember when I was 16, I was on my summer holidays off school, and I started hanging around with these friends of mine. And they weren't really a good crowd, Fiona, you know, and I think we all got mixed up in bad crowds now and again, but it was a bad crowd, and there was a man there and I really liked him and he really shone to me and we started going out with each other, and now he was much older than me, so I thought I was chuffed to myself, you know, an older man, like, you know, mature man or whatever, you know, and but he was actually a lot older than I even thought he was, right? So
and this wasn't in the mobile phone days either.
No, there was no mobile phones, no internet. So I started seeing him, but through the course of the weeks, I started to see things, and he was there was drugs involved. There's a few things that kind of happened that I started to become aware of, and I was a little bit anticipated of it all. And but this man attacked me, raped me, whatever words you want to use. And I remember I was only 16, I was still in school, and I became pregnant as a result of all of that. So I was 16 and pregnant, and it happened in September. I was actually wearing my school uniform when it happened. And
God, Joanne.
Yeah, and so I remember I had nobody to turn to. This is the one thing that I remember. I remember walking home from that scene, and I was walking home, and on the way home, I knew what would happen, and I knew in my gut that I was pregnant. Like I knew that I would be pregnant as a result of this. Like it was, you know, and anyway, so I do remember I wanted to get the morning after pill. That was what was in my head. But I had no idea how to do that. I had no idea who to say it to, because I'd be shamed and frowned upon, and you should have known better and it's your own fault, and this is what I had in my head, how it would be taken. And there was no way I was going to tell my mother. And I couldn't even go to a pharmacist. I had it in my head, I'll go to a pharmacist. And I said, sure, how can they help me? And there was nobody, there was no options, there was no way around it. So I proceeded with my life, and after this happening. And I remember when I was going to school, this man would be at the next bus stop, and if he saw me getting on the bus going to school, he'd get on the bus as well, and he'd literally sit opposite me. And this is like a form of terrorism, if you like. I was terrified. And
you could tell nobody, couldn't tell teachers, the guards, nobody.
You
were so scared.
Nobody. And I'd know what older brothers or sisters. I'd nobody, absolutely no. It was the most loneliest, isolated, frightening time of my life. And there was a lot that happened in between, and we won't have time to go into all of it, but there was a lot that happened. And but it was all, you know, I was stalked, I was threatened for money, lots of different things that happened. And to make a long story short, then I was in 6th year, I was doing my leaving cert, and I actually dropped out towards Christmas. I stopped going to school because I was getting morning sickness, and I was very bad with the morning sickness. And I always remember we were living in a 3-bed house, and there was only the one bathroom, right, back in those days. And so all the houses now would have at least 2 bathrooms, one downstairs, one upstairs. It was only the one. So I'd have the morning sickness, everybody would be getting ready for school in the morning or whatever. So I used to bring towels into my bedroom at nighttime and use those to get sick in.
Oh my goodness.
And hide it. And I always did my own washing. So that wasn't obvious. I used to do my own washing anyway. So I'd wash the towels or whatever. So I coped. I had ways of coping, but I dropped out of school by Christmas time, and my mom did not like the look of me. My mom did not know I was pregnant at this point. She was very concerned about my health. And in January, she brought me to a doctor, and I was terrified, but I was kind of relieved, because I knew she was going to find out. And I was 5 months pregnant at this stage, and I was starting to show. I was hiding it very well. I was very small, I'm a very small, slight person anyway. But we went to doctors, and the doctors confirmed that I was pregnant. And so I had to go into the hospital straight away for the usual tests and all this kind of stuff. But my mother was so distraught about, naturally enough, because she had other issues going on with my father. There was other things that was going on that she was going through, that she was like really what would I say?
It was just not another thing she needed on her plate.
it was like another extreme
Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, what else
thing.
could come
Yeah,
from
I
here?
won't say what was going on. I won't say, but
No.
my mom was challenged with some other really big decisions that she had to make.
Yeah.
So she was contending with all of that. And I remember she was in Dublin City one day and she bumped into my uncle, and he asked how she was, and she just broke down crying because she just couldn't take anything anymore. It was too much. It
It
was
was so
way too
much,
much.
so much. Yeah.
So he came up, and he came up that night. I think, like, God bless him, like my uncle, and he had a chat with me, and I opened up to my uncle, which was great because it was the first time I really opened up to anybody. And so from that time, it was arranged with the head nun of my school and another social worker that I happened to be seeing. My mum was very big into community work, and she knew lots of people. She had great connections, and so I was working with a social worker, and between them all, they got me into this other, it was a boarding school in North County Dublin. No, I think it was County Meath even. And they got me into this boarding school. It was a home, actually. It was a home where other young teenage girls who were pregnant. So one half of the convent, it was all these girls, and the other half was where the nuns lived, right? And big house. And I was there for 2 months. Now that was like a prison. It was like going to a prison.
What year roughly was this, Joanne?
89.
Like, it's mad to think, because, like, I was in secondary school in 89. I did my leaving in 89, and to think that that sort of stuff was still going on, because I remember being a child thinking we were in so much the modern age
Yeah,
compared to our folks, and yet there was still so much of that segregation, hiding,
a lot of, and there was a very big
said, like a
stigma.
jail.
Very big stigma, like, because at that time there wasn't very many young, it was very frowned upon to be pregnant outside of marriage, never mind the age I was, so big stigma. And I was in trouble, like, and
can I ask you, sorry, Joanne, to interrupt, when you said you opened up to your uncle, did you go as far as opening up to the fact that you were raped and attacked that particular?
I didn't have that conversation with him. Just how I was feeling. I can't remember the exact conversation, but it was perfect. Whatever it was that was said, it was perfect. It was just to make plans for going forward. And to finish my leaving cert. And basically what was said to me was, don't throw your life away because of somebody else, what somebody else did to you. Don't throw your life away. You're so much bigger than that. I was always a very bright person, had so much going for me. This, even whatever was going on, the whole family home and the family dynamics. This is why, one of the reasons why I really believe the home environment is like crucial, absolutely, for a safe and happy social life inside the home, because this really sets you up for who you are as an adult. And this is one of the things that I believe that an organization can help with if it's intervened at an early stage, because after that incident, I went through life, I decided a lot of things, because the subconscious mind just decides things to protect you going forward, in case a similar incident happens again or whatever, and for me, what that looked like was, I did not trust anybody, especially men. I did not trust
100%.
And it's so debilitating when you can't trust people. Now today there are a few people that I do trust with my heart, and absolutely with my life I do trust. Thank God I have that ability, but there's a lot of people, and it really drains me of energy when I can't trust. I'm very very skeptical rather, and always asking a lot of questions, and always leaning towards the side of, oh, they're going to be using me and abusing me. Right, this is what I have, using me and abusing me. Trust. So trust is a very big core value of mine. But I did go on to when I was in that boarding school, I sat my leaving cert, and I remember the last week of the exams. It was on a Tuesday, and I was doing an honours paper in biology and the maths paper, and I was in such pain that week, like when the head is dropping and things are moving, your body's getting ready and all of this, right? I didn't understand what was going on in my body, right? I just felt off and in pain. Where I was in so much pain, all I could do was write my name on the paper. I couldn't even read the questions. I was in so much pain and I was panicking. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew I wasn't in labor, but it was the start of something. But anyway, the last exam on the Friday, when I talk about synchronicity, and we were talking about synchronicity and the universe working for you and all this, we were talking earlier on, but on the Friday when I finished my last exam, I was allowed to get the bus home. I used to get the bus home every second week. I was allowed, because I was a student, I was allowed to go home. So I got to go home this Friday, and I got the bus into the Dublin city centre, and then another bus out to where I live. So I had to get to 2 buses, and I went into labour. After on the bus journey home, I would start getting the Braxton Hicks pains and all of this. And it lasted it was like a false labour. It lasted for a night or two. And I remember on the Monday morning, I gave birth to my baby son. And so.
Were you at home when that happened?
Thank God I was at home when that happened. Yeah, thank God I was at home when that happened. And this was so funny. I remember on Sunday night, my nanny was with us because my mother used to mind her. She stayed with us quite an awful lot, but my mom was putting a perm in my nanny's hair, and she had to get my nanny's hair finished before she could bring me into hospital. So she was kind of timing it, the way you stay at home for as long as you can while you're in labour, right? Without letting it go too far. So she's timing it to get the perm finished in my nanny's. And I was like, dear God, I'm in labour here. I'm like, I don't know what. And there she was doing the hair, But my mom brought a neighbour down to sit with me in the sitting room, and I'm, oh God, I'll never forget it. But yeah, and I when I had my son, I came home and I lived with my mother. I still lived in the family home. So I was only I actually had just turned 17 actually when I gave birth, and I lived in the family home for a few years later. But it got to a stage then there was 10 of us living in a 3-bed house.
Oh my goodness!
Would be sleeping in the
brand new
room.
And, wow.
Yeah. Now my mother was so good to me. She really helped me out. I ended up going to work. I wanted to go out working, and I was very independent, as I say, and very driven. And she used to mind my son for me quite an awful lot. But it was still I insisted on my son being in the same room as me. The cot was in my bedroom, and I minded him when he was teething during the night and fed him during the night. I did all that stuff as well. And this is one of the reasons why I value sleep today. There was a lot of instances over all of this where I did not get sleep, and it was really challenging, and because you're going into work. I actually went to college for a year after I had my son. But I do remember one other instance, Fiona, when I did get my first job, and the job request came in through the college, because the college placed you, the college sent you for the interviews. And I got the interview. I went for 2 interviews, and they thought it was brilliant. And a couple of days after me being there, they wanted me to take on a new role. They were actually even more surprised by how I was managing and how my relationships with the other employees. They thought, it's like, God, you're really clicking with the people very quick. And that afternoon, it was a family-run business. And that afternoon, the wife, we were having a conversation about birthday parties, and I happened to mention something about my son. And she's like, oh, you have a son. And the following day, Fiona, I was fired from that job. I was let go.
Oh my goodness.
And the man, the husband, he had promised me to take on additional role. Oh, in this conversation, so I put 2 and 2 together, and they fired me because I was a single parent, which was absolutely disgusting. So I went home and I locked myself in the bedroom again. Didn't want to come out. I said, is this what life is going to be like? Is this how people are going to see me and treat me?
You're like a leper, basically, just because, when they declared that you were a single mom.
So debilitating, so depressing. And I was making an effort, Fiona. I was like, they obviously didn't see who I was, and all the judgments.
Pure judgment, pure. What will it look like for us to have somebody like this employed in a family-run business?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
appearances.
you know, when we judge people, like, we don't really know. We've no right to judge anybody. When you think about it, we have no right to judge anybody. It's their business. It's nothing to do with us, no matter what the circumstances.
I mean, you were hired to do a particular job. You were doing the job. What went on outside is nobody else's business.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. It was disgusting, Fiona. I'll never forget it. And back then, you know, when you were applying for jobs, it was the actual CV, you actually typed it out in a typewriter.
Yes.
And you'd put it into an envelope.
Put an envelope, yes, and write your cover letter by hand.
When I was applying for that job, what I did was I went around all the industrial estates, and I got my brother and I got their friends as well, and we'd all go off on our bicycles.
Yeah.
And we put the CVs in the letter boxes of the jobs or whatever.
Yeah.
That's how I applied for work.
That's how it was. I remember it. Oh my goodness.
Madness. And I used to get neighbours across the road. I'd print out my or not print out, I'd had it typed up as CV, and I'd give it to a neighbour across the road and ask her, will you do me a photocopy of 20? Because she worked. So I said, will you give me 20? She'd photocopy 20, and somebody else down the road would photocopy 20.
Yeah.
This is how I did it, you know. But yeah, so you can imagine there was no way I was incentivized to go out looking for another job.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So did you like, I mean, obviously you went through, I mean, that's a huge story. I mean, to not even go in any further than that is enough. There's so much, you know, learning and drama and trauma in that in itself. You know, for you as a young girl to experience so much so soon, and
still a child
without the support. Although your mum did sound like she did really support you in that whole last few months of being pregnant, and then supporting bringing up your son when you started to go out for work. So I mean, that's what she was able to do. She was able to do that sort of stuff as opposed to maybe show you the affection that you needed earlier. But she was able to, like, I can physically do something now. I can help her physically.
Yeah, my mom was the same.
A lot of restrictions for some of the older generations, you know, can't deal with the emotion, but tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah. My
Which
mother
is great, but it's not what a child needs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, really, and this is my message, Fiona, is, and I often wonder if I felt that love, now unconditional love, we talk about unconditional love, right? And in parenting, now I'm not a parenting expert, but I am a parent myself, right? So I do have experience, and I think that's expertise in itself that makes me the expert, doesn't it? But look, as a parent, we tell our children, oh, don't do that, don't do that, that's wrong, and we punish them and all this kind of thing. And in my opinion, when we make a child wrong, there's something not right about that. There's something that does not work about that. We need to love our children unconditionally. Yes, they may have done something that doesn't work, or, you know, it's not appropriate or whatever, but not to make them wrong. We can do it in a different way. But really, it's to give them that sense of we want them to have that curiosity. We want them to keep them very open and curious and playful, but we're suppressing them every time we make them wrong. And I know we've done this, we've always done it that way, but I think there's a new awareness now around parenting. And for me, I often wonder, if I felt that love, that deep-rooted love, would I have gone off into this bad crowd? Because that's where I got my love from. Like, do you know what I mean? At least that's what I thought it was. I was accepted, I was seen, you know. And I often wonder. Now, my mother, I got to see later on, Fiona, that my mother was doing the best that she could, but she wasn't emotionally available to me, and it wasn't her fault. It wasn't her fault. She was contending with a lot, as well as
she was dealing with her stuff and her upbringing and what she was taught, what she was conditioned, and you know, it was dripping into you, and this is what happens until we get to the point where we can stop and change. But yeah, like, and it's great that you can look back and see it for what her world was. You know,
absolutely.
You know, it is.
It took a while for me to.
I can only
that, but I did. I got to see that, and to fast forward, Fiona, I got married years later, my husband wanted to have a child and I didn't. I was like, I'm not a baby making machine, you know. He used to laugh about it, you know. I was like, I didn't get married just to have babies, you know. But really, underneath
first of all, it was great that you did get to that place, you know, to get married, to actually,
Yeah,
love somebody, a man, trust this man, and
yeah,
then decide that it was safe to set up together in a house. That was huge.
yeah, it
A
was.
lot of, I would only imagine, like, what you needed to do
I swore I was never going to get
to do
married at
that,
one point.
you
Like,
know.
I swore there was no way. I'm happy on my own. Life is better on my own. I'm not getting married. And then I did get married a few years later, you know. Now it took, I have to say now, it took a lot for this, for my husband to start going out with me and all that kind. He had to work very hard. But yeah, anyway, we did. But Fiona, we eventually we went for counsel and all the rest because I kind of thought to myself, actually, yeah, maybe because my body clock is kind of ticking away as well,
Yeah.
you know. So we did anyway. Eventually, we did get pregnant, and I wanted to have this all set up to be perfect because my last experience was not ideal. So I wanted to set the scene.
Yeah.
I was working in a job for 17 years at the time, which is a very, very long time. And I did very well in this job. And I decided to give it up. I had a lot of savings, and I gave up this job. I bought myself a brand new car. We bought a brand new house, and we moved. And so there I am in my new house with my new car, and everything's set up, and everything's great and wonderful, and I'm really excited. And the baby was due in December. So I was even more excited because this would be a Christmas baby and all that kind of thing. And so anyway, on the day that my baby was due, on the 7th of December, we had our Christmas tree up the day before because I wanted everything to be ready just in case, you know, so I wanted all the Christmas decorations to be up. But on the 7th of December, I didn't feel right. And we went into the hospital and there was no heartbeat. The baby was dead. So
Wow.
that was incredible. Talk about timing, like right up to the very last day. And probably what was even more like your own, whatever about somebody dying, it's very traumatic and, you know, the grief and all of that. But for your own child to die before you, and then for your own child to die, like still inside you when on the day that your child is to be born. And it was like, it was a shock, like a pure shock. My whole family were in Australia at the time as well, because my brother got married that week. He actually got married the day we buried my daughter. So if you can imagine my mother, they're sitting at the top table, having dinner, doing all the speeches, celebrating my brother's wedding. And at the same time, her first granddaughter is being buried. So my mother, it was very difficult for my mother as well, the whole family, of course. But Fiona, through that whole experience, a few years later, I went through the depths of despair and depression. And I was just like, I'm just giving up on life. Like, what else is going to be thrown here at me, you know? Actually, I never said when I was 6, I was sexually abused when I was 6 as well. And this, I must have blocked this out. And it was only when I was doing the counselling right before I got pregnant on Megan, my daughter Megan, that this came up, and I realized that. So I was abused when I was 6 as well by 2 young adults as well. So I had a lot of it, been used and abused and all of this. And I was like, like, this is not fun. You know, everything seems to be all this been used and abused and all this sort of thing, sexually violated, and nobody to talk to, not like, you know, especially when I was a young girl. But I met a spiritual lady a few years later, Fiona, and this spiritual lady taught me how to love myself. Now, a lot of us don't love ourselves. An awful lot of us actually find it very hard to say, I love myself. People will get all, sure, you know, but a lot of people, and this is really fundamental, you know, we need to love ourselves, and have an appreciation for ourselves, before we can be kind to other people. And this is the root of why a lot of people don't have great relationships. And the world, imagine a world where everybody loved themselves and they didn't have to be judgmental or put other people down. Like, imagine a world of that. And so when I was
so in love with yourself, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing.
Flaws and all, like, it's perfect.
Fully acceptance of you.
Yeah.
And therefore you automatically fully accept everybody else, because there is no such thing as competition or judgment or
Completely.
comparison,
Yeah.
any of those horrible things
Yeah.
that just eat us up.
When you're
But man,
complete
like
yourself.
you have just like, you've just spoken about something that's like so massive, and yet it's always used down to a few sentences. And I know you've shared this before, but it's like, it's so huge, you know, in itself, you know. And you said, you mentioned you went into depression, and what was it all for? But I mean, and could I imagine? No, I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine being at the grave of a child of mine, with or without parents, and never mind them actually the other side of the world, at a celebration, while I was going through this by myself. Like what I've, you know, been studying and learning is that everything happens for us, and it only happens for us because we're able for it, and it's teaching us something. Now that's lovely, and that does really help in a lot of situations, but in a situation like this, you want to be really, really strong to be able to see, you know, well, okay, you know, to be able to get past the point, I'm sorry, I don't understand any lesson here. There's just none. You know, what could there possibly be? It's just, you know,
to see a hope,
have hope. Do you move on from that? You know,
and there were a lot of moments like that I did have suicidal thoughts. It was too painful. I remember I used to stay in bed and make myself sleep during the day because it was too painful to get up out of bed. It was too painful to live, you know, to live and breathe. And I used to make myself sleep in bed at times, you know. I didn't want to get up. It was, and when I'd wake up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd say, okay, at least I've only got so many hours now before I can go to sleep again. Or, you know, I used to hate being awake. I used to just hate being awake. It was too painful.
So painful. Yeah.
But I really believe that, you know, there's a lot of support groups out there now at the moment that can really help. And I think there needs to be an awareness. I think there needs to be an awareness in schools, even for young teenagers, of these places that they can ring and confide in these people and talk to support groups, or, you know, these charities or whatever. I think it's really important that there's awareness for young teenagers who have been sexually abused, or any kind of trauma in the family. You know, it doesn't even have to be an
Did you find support? Did you have support?
The only support I had was a youth counsellor who my mother knew very well, because my mother did a lot of work in the community, and my mother arranged for me to see this person. And but that was 5 months after my mother found out I was pregnant. Like, I had nothing up to 5 or 6 months. I had nothing. So this was very traumatizing, and there's a lot that's been embedded and wired in my brain as a result of that. I didn't have quick intervention. This is my point.
Yeah. And after your you know, your little girl passed away, you know, did you have support to help them do any of that, or was it?
I went to a bereavement group. I did go to a bereavement group. Oh God, I can't think the name of it now, because they were very good to me. There is a lot of bereavement groups for parents who have lost their child, you know, miscarriage, or early, losing their child early, or at birth, or whatever. There is, oh God, I can't think the name of the group now that I went to, but it was in Beauty's Hotel in Clondalk, and I used to go once a month to that, and I found that very helpful. Just to be able to say it, you know, just to be able to say it, and in a conversation, there's something so powerful about a conversation. You get light bulb moments and realizations and insights in a conversation that you would never even think of, you know. Just something about, and to feel safe, and to know that there's somebody else like you, there's somebody
and who understands, who gets it, because you know, your husband, amazing, your family, amazing, no doubt, but they don't get it.
It's very different for them. Yeah.
and they might listen to you, but they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So you end up not talking about it as much as you should, because you don't want to burden them with, and you try to kind of be okay, but inside you're absolutely.
Yeah. And they go through their own grievances in their own ways, you know. So it's different for each of us, you know.
It's massive, Joanne, like cheapers.
Yeah. Now, thank God, like now, Fiona, I get to see, and I wouldn't say this to too many, I know we're being recorded here and you're going to take it, but I've no problem saying this now, but I see, when you were saying earlier on about, you know, the universe doing things for a reason or whatever, I really believe in the power of energy in the universe now, because I got to see that with the spiritual lady that I was working with. And what I got to see was how powerful we are as individuals, and how powerful we are as individuals. And my work is all based on that. It's all based on empowering people, because we're all unique individuals and we all have our own needs. And having fun in life is a very big value of mine as well. And fun for each person is very different. So we need to understand, we need to know what that is, that gives us fun and joy. We really need to know. So many people, if you ask them what to do for fun, they wouldn't know how to answer that. And that's really sad. And it's a really big, because it really rises your vibration. And when you're in that state, you know, all your challenges and stuff they don't seem to have as strong a hold over you, even though they're still there, you know. And I really believe in this approach. And we lose so much sleep as well, obviously, with all these worries and upsets and what have you, and stress.
And I know, like, everything led to, you know, you discovering sleep. And but, you know, what was the biggest thing for you, I suppose, that got you to the next piece of being okay? What was that? I know you met the spiritual lady. What was it? Was it really immersing yourself and learning to love yourself, or was there something else?
Well, one of the things she always said to me was, sit on your heart. And I thought she was a bit cuckoo, right?
Sit where?
Sit on your heart.
Oh, sit on your heart.
Sit on your heart. She's always said at the beginning of our sessions, she'd say, sit on your heart there now, Joanne, because that will raise your vibration, it will raise your energy. And I was like, what is she talking about? I had to call her one day, and I said, because she'd go up and get the room ready, and she'd just tell me to sit on my heart so that I'd be in a higher state when I go into the room. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, just think of someone you love, or think of something great you did, or something you're looking forward to, really just to raise your vibration. It was really gratitude and opening up my heart. That's what she was getting me to do, really, right?
Yeah.
And so I was loving all this energy stuff, this gratitude. I was loving it. So I really got into health and you know, looking after yourself, looking after your physical body and your mental body. And I started doing massage and Reiki and reflexology, and I became qualified in all those therapies. So a holistic therapist, I've done loads of stuff. And from there, I met Pat Slattery, my mentor. He was my mentor for a number of years, and he got me to write a book to raise my credibility. And he said, I haven't got a clue what to write a book about. And I definitely wasn't ready to write a book about my story. And so I realized a lot of my clients were tired, they were upset, they had no energy. And I went, oh my God, people need more sleep. So that's why I wrote the book on sleep. And that's how everything progressed from there. And when I wrote the book and done the research, I was even more wowed by the topic, because I wrote my book in 2017, and sleep was really only starting then to be highlighted as a pillar of health. And a lot of people were not aware of the importance of sleep, because we're not really doing that in that nighttime. You know, it's not like, you know, you're going on
we're such human doings, and it's like, what you need sleep for, there's you can do so much more, you know, if you're not sleeping. That's the mentality. But isn't it interesting? I think if you were to go back though decades, you know, sleep was really recognized as something that was, you must get your sleep. And then we seem to have lost it for a chunk of time there between, I don't know, between the 70s and only a few years ago, as you say. It's all about the busyness. The busier you are, the better.
Oh yeah.
So if you can say like, oh, you know what, I've only just had three hours sleep for the last week, I'm gonna die amazing.
Yeah, badge of honor.
Oh, actually, you know, you bet me or something, I only had 4, or I only had 2.5, or it's like becomes this. But we didn't realize we're doing serious damage.
Absolutely. And it was all about grinding and, you know, working every hour that you have and all of this. Be ahead of the competition. It doesn't work, Fiona. It really doesn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, you discovered sleep as a result of that, being in the holistic world, which was a result of me meeting the spiritual teacher, which really the essence of all of that came from discovering the power of you and the power of loving yourself enough to look after yourself with the basics. You know, just being able to say that you love yourself, being able to say, okay, if I love myself, then how do I treat myself? I must treat myself well from a body point of view, food, fitness, you know, sleep, all those basics that are simple, but we just forget to do them.
Absolutely.
And when you empower yourself from that point, then opportunities start to open, and then you can start to really fall in love with life again when you're full.
Absolutely. It's all about valuing, looking after your body and valuing and respecting yourself. Because if you don't do it, how in the name of God are you going to have those attributes towards other people? You know, you've got to, as I say, you got to fill the cup up first and even have it overflowing, you know.
Overflowing. And, you know, you being a mom as well, if you're not, what's the message you're sending out if you're not looking after yourself, you know? And that's something, I suppose, that's been fed from generations, where the mom was always last.
Yeah.
Sort everybody else first, you know, get everybody else out the door, get everyone else fed, get everything else done. And then, like, okay, if there's 5 minutes left, I'll eat something and maybe I'll sit down.
Yeah, absolutely. And even down to, you know, spending money on ourselves and what have you, the last penny, you know, and we leave ourselves to last, and the kids, if the kids are happy, I'm happy. And that's not the way it should not be dependent on if someone else is happy, then I'll be happy. No.
And it's not a good message to teach the kids, because then they kind of thinking, oh, well, you know, especially with your daughter, that's the message you're sending to them. Look after everybody else, love, and don't worry about yourself. So absolutely, so important. And I
have a young daughter now, Fiona, and I really treasure her to bits, and I really practice. I let it go of her when she was very young, because I had a lot going on, and there's circumstances and what have you. And look, we all shout at our kids and we lose it, right? But I swore from that day onwards I was never going to do that again. And I'm really conscious now of, if I've to notice if there's emotions rising, if I'm getting angry or whatever, not to take it out on our kids, because it's way too easy to do that. And we do that a lot without realizing it. And that has an impact on your child, right? Today I have a fantastic relationship with my daughter. She is very clued in, if I could say that. She's very observant, which is fantastic, because it's like, and she's watching me, and she goes to a lot of my meetings and she hears a lot of my conversations, and it's the people that I'm surrounded with has an impact on her as well. And I'm really proud, and I have great faith that she will grow up to be a very strong, heart-centered girl, you know, and she's going to be a leader in the world. And that's what this is all about. Because if we can provide that kind of environment for our children, knowing that, you know, having our children know that they are safe no matter what, that they can tell us anything. I think that is super important, that we have that relationship with our children, that they can tell us anything that needs to be said, and confide in us, you know, because you don't want isolation or loneliness among children at all.
How old is she now?
She's 11.
Beautiful. Exactly the same as my own.
11.
Yeah, fabulous. And your son, how is he?
Yeah, he's good. He was living in China there for a long time, totally fluent in Chinese, professional jazz musician. Oh my God, some of the work that he used to do over in China. He's living here in Ireland now, the last year or two. And he's married and he has a young son, so I'm a granny. So that's all good. But you know, life is good now, and I really want to just create an awareness, spread the message, tell my story. I used to be terrified about telling my story, but you know something, with everything together, when I think about it, when I stop and look back and think about it, this just didn't happen by chance, or you know, I like there's a learning in everything, as you said, Fiona, you know, and I feel compelled. I feel that this is part of my work. I feel this is part of my mission, and my purpose is to help families, especially parents, and really have them be and act and behave in a certain way, because it's not in us telling our children what to do. It's in our behavior and who we are being it's in who we are being and our state of mind, if you like, our emotional health, whatever, how our being has that impact on our children. And that is massive, because our children are our future generation and they're going to be our next world leaders. And we want to leave that legacy behind, you know, and we want our world, just because we're gone from the world, we still have children who are carrying on the generations behind us. So it's important that we are effective in this world, and especially with our children. I am supporting Carrie as well, Children at Risk in Ireland. That's Colin O'Brien is behind that organisation, and
brilliant. It's a brilliant organisation.
Yeah. So that's a really they're based in Limerick and Dublin, and again, they need funds. They need funds. They have a lot of people on the waiting list, and it breaks my heart, because especially if they're asking and they're reaching out for help, families or children, they need to be seen and heard quickly, because if they're left waiting, they'll lose hope. And, you know, they need to be, so they do need funds to help to facilitate these young children and families who need their help. So I'm really passionate about helping them in whatever way that I can. So carry.ie is the charity organisation there.
Fantastic.
And there's a lot of others as well out there helping young children. You know, there's a lot of others, and they're all equally important. So, but that's who I can't support everybody.
Absolutely. So, you know, as we wrap up, I suppose, Joanne, I mean, what is one most, what's the biggest message you want to tell anyone who's listening to this, who's listened to your story of,
so the biggest, so if you have been affected by abuse, you know, it could be a family member, it could be a parent, could be a friend of the family, whatever. It's really important for you to reach out and speak to somebody about it, because they'll help you. You might not know the answers, and it's a very it's not right. It's not right what has happened to you, and your life should not be defined by it. You know, there's a lot of shame, that can be a lot of shame and guilt, and we often blame ourselves for what I did. I blamed myself for what happened.
Yes.
And I had to do a lot of forgiveness. So forgiving myself was a huge thing for me personally. And forgiving the person who did it. Now, I didn't actually go to that person and say it to them, but I just forgave them.
I don't think.
Yeah, I just forgave them because I was able to detach from it then. But I think being able to reach out to people, because they will help you through these processes. You know, what needs to be done that can help you detach from that situation and not make it mean something in your life going forward, because it can have an impact and it can determine how you are being as you progress through life. As I say, trust is a big issue for me. It's one of my biggest values now, you know. So when you speak to somebody, even in a conversation, you'll be surprised at what can come out from that. So seek support, even if it's from a friend. Obviously, you need to feel trusted and safe to have that conversation. But there are organisations out there like Carrie that you can pick up the phone and speak to, and that would be the first step. And definitely, if you can speak to your parents, that would be obvious as well. But really, for parents to be aware of this and to be aware of how the environment that they're creating in the family home as well. Because for me personally, I did not feel loved, and I think that was one of the main reasons why. What happened, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for that safe family environment. Super, like, I just can't emphasize it enough. And we're doing the best that we can as parents. It doesn't come with a manual. We are doing the best that we can, but we don't always get it right. So just to be aware of that, and that we can do some things better, be more effective. So.
And do you mind me asking you, Joanne, how do you feel now as a person?
I feel very empowered, and I sometimes, now I do still doubt myself sometimes, but then I come back and I realize that I am more powerful than I think sometimes, you know, and that's not an ego thing. And this is why I feel that I am ready now to tell people about my story, because hopefully somebody will see themselves in my story and they will see something about themselves. And it will give them the strength and the inspiration to reach out to somebody, and it's in the conversation, having a conversation with somebody, that is so powerful. And I just see myself as an advocate for this kind of work. And I'm really passionate about young children, especially because I believe every child deserves a healthy and happy childhood. You only
Yeah.
have one chance
Yeah.
at it.
And how is your little girl that's inside you now? Does she feel loved now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you asked that, because that's super important as well. I was able to go back and give her a hug and tell her she feels safe and everything's okay. And it's really changed an awful lot. That forgiveness work that I did as well was very powerful. Like a lot of you wouldn't even think the impact that can have, but it really helps you detach and detach that meaning that we created, because this is what our brain does. It creates a meaning for us, because we have to make sense out of what happened. But it's not always true, and we believe everything we tell ourselves. So we have to be careful what we're telling ourselves, and to be able to identify a false belief, if you like, or something that's not serving us, and then be able to detach that. And then again, that's work that Carrie can do with it as well, and it's super powerful.
Yeah. And just something you mentioned earlier about, letting go, detaching from the abuser or abusers. Because when you don't detach, they still continue to abuse you mentally.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's the thought might be, well, if I forgive them, then it means that it was okay, but it's actually not. It's if you can try and reframe it in such a way, and I know it's obviously challenging to do, but by detaching releases you rather than them still having control over you.
Yeah, it's like if you imagine a cord kind of plugged into that person, you're giving it energy. That energy is going from you and going to them. So you're becoming powerless.
Yes.
As a result. So when you can unplug that cord and stop giving it energy and stop giving it meaning, then you're taking your power back. You're taking your energy back. And you're not making it mean. Yes, you will always remember what happened, but it's the emotion that drives us. So you're detaching that emotion. It's very powerful. It's simple, but it's not easy, Fiona.
Yeah, 100%. It is simple and it seems basic and it seems silly, maybe even. But it's actually very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not easy. Joanne, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. There's so much, and I really could have made this a 3-hour session. Because we really didn't go into half the stuff that would be so impactful, but it's a good start for now. And thank you for taking the time to share with M.A.P.S, supporting M.A.P.S and Elaine Sugar and the wonderful things that she's doing in the world for mental wellness and support. And I know she has a huge side for kids.
She does.
Huge advocate for kids. She does beautiful books and beautiful affirmations. So that's really powerful too. So just before we go, for anyone who would love to chat to you, or maybe just find out a bit more about the support you do for families and for sleep and all that gorgeous stuff, where's the best place to get you?
You know what? Just Google me. I'm on all the usual social media platforms. Just Google me. I do have a podcast as well. It's called Empowering Family Health. So if you Google Empowering Family Health podcast, it will come up on my shows, and you can connect with me. Just Google me.
Perfect. And we will put that in the notes of this podcast anyway, and your Facebook and LinkedIn. So amazing.
Fiona, thanks a million. I really appreciate it. I'm delighted to have this conversation, and anything that I can do to help that will have an impact on the world and to help the children as well. I'm there. So I'm really passionate about it.
And just to thank you for being so brave and vulnerable to share so openly, because there's a lot of stuff, and I can only imagine when you go back there, it's not easy. And it's, so thank you.
You're welcome, Fiona. Have a great day.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. We will chat to you again soon. Bye for now.